What's going on, everybody? RJ Ochoa here from SB Nation's bloggingtheboys.com. Hope all is well wherever you are. We hope you're happy, safe, healthy, and I'm sure that you already agree with what we are here to discuss today on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel. Make sure you do subscribe. Those things help us out. Watch all our videos, like all of our videos. Please, seriously. Those things help us out. Anyway, we are here to discuss something that you definitely like, something you definitely subscribe to, something that you definitely enjoy. I'll go ahead. I'll stop beating around the bush. Let's discuss Micah Parsons, Defensive Player of the Year, happening. It should be happening at the very least. Here's the deal. The National Football media, National Football landscape, National Football League, the National Football kind of mindset is now picking up on what a lot of Dallas Cowboys fans have known for a long time. And it's that this dude, Micah Parsons, Dallas Cowboys rookie linebacker, although linebacker doesn't really feel fair to what Micah Parsons has been this season, rookie linebacker, edge rusher, defensive star extraordinaire, Micah Parsons is going to be the defensive rookie of the year. We already know that. We have moved well beyond that. We are now talking about somebody who is one of the very best defenders in the NFL, among all defenders, not just among rookies, not just among NFC East players, not just among the NFC. He's well past. I can't believe he didn't win an NFC Defensive Player of the Week this past week after the Cowboys beat Washington, but we are talking about perhaps the very best defensive player in the NFL. That's why he should be in contention for Defensive Player of the Year. Now, we have some things that we're going to get to discuss Micah Parsons, some points of legitimacy, some measurables. But before we do, I want to explain something that I think is important, something that sometimes gets overlooked when it comes to awards of this variety. Now, the NFL is a funny business. We all know that. The NFL can be a weird place. The NFL can sometimes have some head-scratching things happen. When it comes to awards, things like MVP, Defensive Player of the Year, Offensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year on offense and defense, Comeback Player of the Year, there aren't necessarily rules. Sometimes players win Comeback Player of the Year for coming back from being awful, right? We all think Dak Prescott is probably going to win. That conversation hasn't really, been one that's been had a lot as of late. Obviously, Dak has struggled, but Dak is going to win Comeback Player of the Year. His only real competition for that is Joe Burrow. Now, something you might have heard me say, a couple of months ago when Dak was certainly operating at an elite level, was that I never saw a world where Dak would win both MVP and Comeback Player of the Year. This was, of course, when Dak was in the running for MVP. And the reason for that is that the NFL generally doesn't give multiple awards out to the same player. My contention at the time was that if Dak Prescott won MVP, that Joe Burrow would win Comeback Player of the Year, also coming back from injury. The NFL kind of likes to have things be neat, have one award per person, and you don't have to look farther than MVP every year. Every year, there's an MVP, a most valuable player, and there's also an offensive player of the year, right? And MVP is always a quarterback, and a quarterback is an offensive player, but that quarterback does not win Offensive Player of the Year. See what I'm saying? There are some inconsistencies here. There's also narrative. Narrative is a big factor in deciding who wins these awards. Narrative is something that is important if you're on a playoff team or if you're not on a playoff team. When you look at Micah Parsons, the true top prime contenders for Defensive Player of the Year alongside him are TJ Watt of the Pittsburgh Steelers and Myles Garrett of the Cleveland Browns. Now, we'll see what happens with Garrett's Browns. They're certainly in contention, might even win the AFC North, but the Pittsburgh Steelers definitely look a little bit more lost, might not make the playoffs. The Cowboys were actually on the other side of this coin, something we'll talk about in just a little bit. 13 years ago, when DeMarcus Ware, I think, had the best season of any defensive player in the NFL in 2008 and did not win Defensive Player of the Year. The reason for that, I believe, because the Cowboys were not a playoff team in 2008. 44-6, we don't have to talk about it. However, James Harrison, part of the Pittsburgh Steelers, was on a playoff team. And so those things matter. Those things are important. And so I want to say that Micah Parsons being a rookie might hurt him because the NFL might say, you know what, we'll give him defensive rookie of the year, and he'll just pick up a defensive player of the year further down the road. He'd have to do something extraordinary, I think, for him to kind of have this, open book, shut the book case to be defensive player of the year. But thankfully, he kind of does have that sort of case. Now, Aiden Davis, one of our fantastic writers at Blogging the Boys, was kind enough to put together this data for us. What you're seeing here is Micah Parsons' rookie year, which is obviously where we're at here in 2021, and what he has done through week 14. The Cowboys just beat the Washington football team at the time of this video's recording. Obviously, that's 13 games under Micah Parsons' belt. And we are looking at Micah Parsons so far through this season's first 13 games against the top seasons of some of the very best defensive players over the last decade. You are looking from left to right at 2020 Aaron Donald, his entire season. 2018 Aaron Donald, his entire season. 2016 Khalil Mack, his entire season. 2015 J.J. Watt, his entire season. And yes, the aforementioned, the thief, 2008 James Harrison, obviously his entire season. What do these 5 players have in common? Really 4 players if you count Aaron Donald twice. All the seasons you were looking at from these defensive players were defensive player of the year seasons. Now, the first line we're looking at is pressures per game. Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, J.J. Watt, James Harrison. The leader in that neighborhood was Aaron Donald in 2016. These are per Pro Football Focus's measurements, by the way. Averaged 6.6 pressures per game. Micah Parsons only averaging 4.2. He is not the lowest of these particular contenders, these 6 players that you see in front of you, including Micah. However, not the most impressive, but that's okay. Just hold on a second. If you haven't already looked down below and gotten ahead of me, tackles per game, you can see that Micah Parsons far and away the leader in this capacity. Tackles aren't the whole end all, be all, tell all sort of situation. We don't have to talk about who led the Dallas Cowboys in tackles last year, but that is an example. Tackles are a little bit misleading, and Micah Parsons is a linebacker. That is something that is different from, obviously, the majority of what we're looking at here as far as these defensive players are concerned. Sacks per game. J.J. Watt, Aaron Donald, very impressive numbers. J.J. in 2015, 1.2 sacks per game. Aaron Donald, 1.3 sacks per game. James Harrison, 1.1 sack per game, just ahead of Micah Parsons, who is averaging a sack per game so far throughout his debut NFL season, which really is stupid when you really think about it. Forced fumbles per game. This is where Micah Parsons obviously has excelled. He is a turnover generating machine. This is where James Harrison was amazing. 0.23, almost a quarter of a fumble generated per game. And I know that sounds small. You think, man, it's really microscopic. A quarter of a fumble per game. That means once every 4 games he's forcing a fumble. I mean, that's pretty nuts outside of what he's doing, the other contributions he's making. It is absurd. When you look at the win percentage in pass rush, this is what is just so impressive about Micah Parsons. This is literally what it sounds like. This is how often he wins when he is lining up as a pass rusher. 25% of the time. That outranks 2020 Aaron Donald, just below 2018 Aaron Donald, but it beats the rest. 2016 Khalil Mack easily beats 2015 J.J. Watt and 2008 James Harrison. Again, the only player he is playing against here or measuring up against here and not winning is against 2018 Aaron Donald. And again, for full context here, we are looking at the very best seasons of the best defensive players that the National Football League has seen over the last decade, and Micah Parsons compares very favorably, or in most instances better than the field. So we look next here, average depth of tackle against runs. Again, that is exactly what it sounds like. How deep behind the line of scrimmage is Micah Parsons making the tackle on run plays? 2.3 yards past line of scrimmage. He very easily beats Aaron Donald. Again, Aaron Donald's a defensive tackle. There are certain levels of impressiveness that are applicable to different positions. 2016 Khalil Mack was amazing. Obviously, there was a lot happening there. A big reason for why the Chicago Bears ultimately wound up trading for him 2 years later. 3 yards past line of scrimmage. J.J. Watt in 2015, not a lot to write home about, and neither was James Harrison in 2008. The final thing, and this is what I think is really maybe the slam dunk sort of point as to why Micah Parsons is at the very least deserving of being in the running for Defensive Player of the Year, is the percentage of snaps in pass rush positions. Micah Parsons is not a true pass rusher. He is used that way, obviously, because this season has had that be the case out of necessity, out of creativity, but it is not his true sort of obvious always position the way it has been for Aaron Donald, Khalil Mack, and J.J. Watt. You look at that. Aaron Donald, both of the seasons that we're looking at here where he won Defensive Player of the Year, 100% of the time lining up as a pass rusher. Khalil Mack and J.J. Watt just about all of the time. James Harrison in 2008, again, bit of a unique case there, and maybe you can argue why he was deserving of the award. He wasn't. It was DeMarcus Ware's, but 62.5% of the time as a pass rusher. Meanwhile, Micah Parsons lining up the most infrequently of all of these players. He's lining up the least amount of time as a pass rusher, and he is still having more success than most of them in different capacities, different categories, et cetera, et cetera. That is amazing. I know that is maybe not the number you care most about, but I promise that is the number that is far and away the most impressive. That is why Aiden Davis, who does great work for us at blogoftheboys.com, has bolded it for you. Again, half of the time, like, look, just don't even look at the Khalil Mack or JJ Watt or James Harrison numbers, because we all know Aaron Donald is a beast. Look at Micah compared to Aaron Donald. Just the first three columns of this data, this subset that we're looking at here. Micah is working half the time as a pass rusher. We're approximating here, half the time compared to Aaron Donald. And he has, I mean, more than twice the average depth of tackle against runs. He wins as a pass rusher just about at the same rate as Aaron Donald. His forced fumbles per game is basically the same as Aaron Donald. He averages more sacks per game than Aaron Donald last year as the defensive player of the year, the reigning defensive player of the year. He has far and away more tackles per game. Again, it's part of the position and part of the kind of details of football and whatnot. The pressures per game, look, that's part of it too. Aaron Donald's getting twice as many opportunities, and Micah Parsons is not half as far behind. So if you are not believing that Micah Parsons should be defensive player of the year at this point, I don't know how to help you, because he is the man. Micah Parsons is amazing. And if you don't believe me, let's just take a look down memory lane. Earlier this season, Micah Parsons against the Philadelphia Eagles, Jalen Hurts, nope, not going to happen. Great tackle for loss. This was obviously early on. We all believed that Micah could be something amazing. He was starting to show it. We had no idea what he was ultimately going to become. Against the Carolina Panthers, Micah Parsons, once again, come on in. Don't look at that. I mean, I'm going to replay this for you in just a second, and I want you to watch again, because Micah Parsons is that impressive. Here you come. He stumbles right here, and he can close that gap so quickly. It should not be physically possible for him to be that quick given the size that he is. He is a freak. We go now to the game against the Denver Broncos. Micah Parsons coming down the middle. Here he comes. Teddy Bridgewater better get out of the way. I know the Cowboys lost this game, but it doesn't take away from how impressive this was. Man, those red stripes were awesome. I know you hate them, but still, they were great. Micah, seriously, superstar, super freak against the Kansas City Chiefs. There are a lot of highlights in case you didn't know. Patrick Mahomes himself talked about how impressive this was. He got to him multiple times. Micah is unstoppable. No matter who it is, no matter who the offensive line is, no matter who the quarterback is, he's going to find a way to get home. Here, I mean, this is not standard. This is not something that is supposed to be happening. And yet Micah Parsons is doing it with regularity week after week against the very best in the National Football League. Great job against the Kansas City Chiefs. We will now, as soon as the sack is over, take a look at his play against the Las Vegas Raiders on Thanksgiving. Seriously, I mean, he is overpowering offensive tackles in the NFL. I mean, in his first year, he said this week that the NFL wasn't hard, and I know that sounds pompous and arrogant. It's true. Look at this is maybe my favorite play. Look how fast he is. I mean, we're going to play the Washington plays in a moment here, but this is maybe my favorite Micah Parsons play of the year. And I know this game was kind of ugly, and so it was hard to enjoy, but the rate at which he closes on Taysom Hill, who, say what you will about him as a quarterback, but he is obviously very shifty and very fast. Micah Parsons is unreal. I mean, it's a flash. You blink and it's over. And that's what happened to Taysom Hill on this particular play. Micah Parsons, again, say the name, Micah Parsons. He's like Beetlejuice. We have two more times to say Micah Parsons' name. The first, Dorrance Armstrong, definitely happy about it. Here he comes. Taylor Heineke goes down. Ball comes out. You know what happens. Dorrance picks it up, runs it all the way back. Second week in a row where the Dallas Cowboys have a defensive touchdown. Second week in a row, really, 13th game in a row where Micah Parsons has a huge impact. That's just what he does. This is just normal run-of-the-mill stuff from Micah Parsons. Getting held at that. I mean, he's beating one of the best offensive guards in the NFL right there. And he's doing it, like it's no big deal. It's just that should not be something that happens ever, really, but that's who he is. One more look at Micah Parsons getting held again, getting to the quarterback again. You cannot stop this man. He is unstoppable. Micah Parsons is. He will find a way. I don't care what you think his position is, NFL voters. I don't care about the narrative. I don't care about him winning Defensive Rookie of the Year as well. He is the Defensive Player of the Year. Lock it up, give it to him. Let's party. Let's celebrate. Micah Parsons for Defensive Player of the Year. If you agree, let me know down below in the comments. You can always hit me up on Twitter or Instagram. I am at RJ Ochoa. If email is more your thing, you can always shoot me one over at rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. You can hear me and see me all throughout the Blog on the Boys universe. Read me at blogontheboys.com along with all of our fantastic writers. But yeah, Micah Parsons for Defensive Player of the Year. Don't forget it. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time.